Today is Tuesday, June 18th. We'll update you on a heat wave that's impacting hundreds of millions of Americans this week. Also, President Biden's latest plan to help hundreds of thousands of immigrants become American citizens. Plus, a new push for warning labels on social media. The NBA's new record-breaking champion. And a country legend who made live music history. We'll catch you up on those stories and more news to know next. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. The record-breaking heat wave impacting much of the country is only getting more brutal today. It's already extending from the Midwest to the Mid-Atlantic, and today it moves up to the Northeast. The National Weather Service says hundreds of records could be tied or broken this week. Specifically, 270 million Americans will face temperatures above 90 degrees, as well as high humidity. This will be a drastic change for parts of the country that have grown accustomed to several months of mostly comfortable temps. That's what meteorologists say is so concerning, that people's bodies just have not yet adapted for summer heat. And even in a typical year, extreme heat is the deadliest form of severe weather in the U.S. Tomorrow and Thursday are expected to be the hottest days of the week, but today will only be slightly less extreme, even in major cities like Chicago, St. Louis, Cleveland, Detroit, New York City, and Boston. In areas like Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Montpelier, Vermont, people have not seen heat like this in about 3 decades. So a lot of cities are activating heat protocols, for example, opening cooling centers and suspending playground programs. Nearly 500,000 immigrants who are living in the U.S. illegally could soon have a chance at American citizenship. As several news outlets report, President Biden is set to announce a major new immigration policy today. It would impact certain spouses of American citizens who have already been living in the U.S. for at least 10 years. Marrying an American is already typically a fast track to citizenship. But immigrants who cross the border illegally before getting married face more hurdles. Like they have to leave the U.S. for up to 10 years, then apply to return, which many just don't do. So the new plan will change that for long-term residents. It's expected to protect them from deportation and offer them permits so they're allowed to work in the country legally as they apply for green cards. That could amount to the federal government's biggest release program since the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, aka DACA, that was introduced under President Obama. Biden actually has an event planned for today to mark the 12-year anniversary of DACA, and he's expected to announce the new executive action at the same time. The president is also expected to expand DACA, making undocumented immigrants who came to the U.S. as children eligible for visas instead of just the temporary work authorization they get now. Some Republicans have already criticized both ideas as a form of mass amnesty that will attract even more migrants to the southern border. So it's expected to be challenged in court and brought up quite a bit on the campaign trail. In the face of rising tension, Israel's war cabinet has disbanded. And with that, the chances of Israel agreeing to a ceasefire anytime soon have likely fallen. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu formally made the decision this week, though it was largely symbolic since 2 centrist members had already resigned the war cabinet because they disagreed with the way the war in Gaza was being handled. Now, major decisions, like whether to agree to the ceasefire, will be left to a broader security cabinet that includes more far-right leaders who are against that idea and instead want to reoccupy Gaza, though the U.S. is not giving up. In fact, an American envoy arrived in the Middle East yesterday to push for peace. The U.S. Education Department issued its first set of resolutions over anti-Semitism and Islamophobia on college campuses. They address incidents at the University of Michigan and City University of New York, aka SUNY. The Education Department says neither school properly investigated campus reports of discrimination against Jewish, Palestinian, and Muslim students. But both agreed to take steps to avoid that in the future. Under the voluntary resolution agreements, they'll now have to administer so-called climate assessment surveys, review employee and security trainings, and revisit discrimination policies. More schools could follow. More than 100 civil rights investigations have opened since the war in Gaza began, sparking intense campus activism, though the Department of Education will be looking into allegations that date back several years. To be continued. So you know those Surgeon General warnings on the side of cigarette boxes? Well, now the U.S. Surgeon General wants to require similar warnings for social media platforms, too. Dr. Vivek Murthy laid out his reasoning in a New York Times op-ed. He explained that social media can be a contributing factor in the mental health crisis that's growing among young people. So he wants there to be a warning to regularly remind kids and parents that social media has not been proven to be safe for developing brains. To actually require such a warning label, though, Congress will need to take action. It's not clear yet if that will happen, but there is some rare bipartisan unity around the subject of online child safety. So it's possible. Granted, even if a law is passed, tech companies would likely fight it in court. One tech industry group has already responded, saying warning labels would be at odds with the First Amendment right to free speech. And the group stands by social media, saying it can be an important outlet for social connection. Either way, the Surgeon General admits warning labels won't solve the problem entirely. He's also calling on Congress to pass laws to protect teens from online harassment, abuse, and exploitation, and from exposure to extreme violence and sexual content. Plus, he wants schools to keep phones out of classrooms, parents to add more limits around screen time, and for healthcare workers to help guide families on tech safety. All of this could potentially impact a lot of American teenagers. A recent Pew Research survey found 95% of kids ages 13 to 17 say they use at least one social media platform, and more than a third say they use social media almost constantly. We have much more news for you still coming up, but first, this episode is sponsored by Lumi. Okay, it is that time of year now. Vacation season is in full swing. And when you're riding in the car for hours or running through airports, not to mention wanting to look and smell great for the actual vacation part, you're going to want a deodorant you can trust. And that's why I love Lumi Whole Body Deodorant. It's clinically proven to block BO all day long. And you can use it anywhere you get odor, giving you head-to-toe confidence all trip long. Plus, Lumi offers travel-sized minis that are perfect for your toiletry bag or airport carry-on. I appreciate the deodorant wipes that are easy to throw in a bag and make you feel fresh in seconds. Lumi's starter pack is also perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash and deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for listeners, new customers get 15% off all Lumi products with our exclusive code. And if you combine that 15% off with the already discounted starter pack, that equals over 40% off their starter pack. So use code NEWSWORTHY for 15% off your first purchase at LumiDeodorant.com. That's code NEWSWORTHY at Lumi, L-U-M-E, deodorant, DEODORANT.com. Now back to the news. The Boston Celtics have just claimed their 18th NBA championship. That's the most of any team in league history. The Celtics broke the record by defeating the Dallas Mavericks last night in Game 5 of the NBA Finals. The final score was 106-88. It capped off an epic season for Boston. The team has what many consider to be one of the greatest offenses in NBA history, led by Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. And the Celtics' defense was considered second best in the league this season. Now the city says it's working to come up with a big way to celebrate. America's biggest provider of pet insurance is canceling a lot of policies. Nationwide decided to drop coverage for about 100,000 animals around the U.S., blaming the rising cost of veterinary care and more. Nationwide says the cancellations won't be based on a pet's age, breed, or prior claims. But some customers who got dropped say their animals are older and have pre-existing conditions, so they might not be insurable elsewhere. Hundreds of them have joined a Facebook group called Dropped by Nationwide Pet Insurance, and they're considering legal action. They could get even more support, too, since not everyone who's losing their pet insurance knows about it yet. Nationwide says the policies will be canceled gradually over the next year. Impacted customers will be notified in writing. Photoshop maker Adobe is now facing a lawsuit from the federal government. The Federal Trade Commission, aka the FTC, accuses the company of hiding early cancellation fees that apply to its most popular subscription plan. Those fees can sometimes reach hundreds of dollars, but the FTC says they're only laid out in fine print or behind optional text boxes and hyperlinks. And that's apparently just one way Adobe makes it hard to cancel subscriptions. The FTC also says Adobe makes its customers navigate through several pages to cancel online, and that when they try to cancel by phone, they're often disconnected, forced to repeat themselves, and so on. But Adobe insists its cancellation process is simple, and that the terms and conditions of its subscriptions are clear. So we'll see how this one plays out in court. YouTube is the latest to test out a new way to battle misinformation on its platform. It's rolling out a feature called Notes that lets people add bits of information to clarify things on videos. So, for example, they can say if a video is a parody or if it includes older footage presented as a current event. During this testing phase, YouTube says only a limited number of contributors will be able to write the notes, and a team of evaluators will rate how helpful those notes are. When a note is considered helpful, you might see it pop up in a small box below a video you watch. Then notes could eventually be used more broadly. Other platforms have already been using this kind of system, like X, which rolled out community notes back when it was known as Twitter in 2021. The The so-called king of country may soon be known as the king of concerts, too. George Strait broke the record for the largest single-ticketed concert in American history. When he performed at Texas A&M's Kyle Field, nearly 111,000 fans were in attendance. Of course, Strait is no stranger to breaking records. Billboard says he has the most #1 singles of any artist in any genre, and he's the only artist to boast a top 10 hit every year for 3 decades. And he's not done yet. Strait is set to play in Salt Lake City later this month, followed by Detroit and Chicago next month. Then the 72-year-old is putting out a new album in September. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Trivia Tuesday, when we ask a different trivia question every week. But first, a quick break to talk about our sponsor, Boll & Branch. All right, I'm guessing you've experienced this too. You're tossing and turning, trying to get to sleep, or maybe it's the middle of the night, and you've got one leg under the sheets, another sticking out, and you just can't get comfortable. Well, if you run hot when you sleep, Boll & Branch has amazing options for you. Choose from 100% organic cotton percale that's made with a naturally cooling weave, or their linen, which is made from European flax to be light, airy, and softer than soft. I love that Boll & Branch offers such great options, but really, you cannot go wrong with Boll & Branch. I personally have stuck with their best-selling signature hemmed sheets. They're super breathable and are great for both cooler and warmer weather. I paired those sheets with a linen duvet set from Boll & Branch, and I honestly am so comfortable in my bed every night. It's all buttery soft and breathable, yet still cozy. So get your coolest, most comfortable sleep with Boll & Branch. Get 15% off plus free shipping on your first set of sheets when you use our promo code NEWSWORTHY at bollandbranch.com. That's Boll and Branch, BOLLAND branch.com, promo code NEWSWORTHY for 15% off plus free shipping. Exclusions apply, so see site for details. Okay, now back to Trivia Tuesday. Today's trivia question is, what city's name means fragrant harbor? You can play along with us in our weekly roundup email that comes out each Friday. As for last week's trivia question, who was the first American woman in space? The answer is Sally Ride. It was actually this day, June 18th, in 1983, when she made history by flying on the Space Shuttle Challenger. Ride and 4 other NASA crew members lifted off on a 6-day mission to orbit the Earth and deploy communication satellites. Then, just a year later, she went to space again for a second mission. While she was at NASA, Rice also developed a robot arm and served as the go-to communicator between mission control and astronauts in space, and more. Later, she became a physics professor and wrote books about space for students and teachers. Rice paved the path for a lot of young girls who grew up to be astronauts themselves. Nearly 60 American women have been to space so far, and more are scheduled to go soon. Well, thank you so much for listening and following us in your favorite podcast app. We'll be back tomorrow with more news you need to know. Until then, have a great day.